so welcome to Aisha's Oasis of Talk, or OOT for short. I'm Aisha. Today I'm interviewing my colleague, LAINA. LAINA, can you please introduce yourself to our audience?
Sure. Firstly, Aisha, thank you for letting me be part of your interview series. Hi, everyone. My name is LAINA, and I've been teaching English both online and face-to-face for around more or less 4 years. And 2 of those years have been online teaching.
Great. Okay, right, everybody. Today's topic is from face-to-face to online teaching, exploring EFL transitions. Right, LAINA, let's just jump right into it. Let's start with the first question. How has your transition from face-to-face teaching to online teaching been, and what were the initial challenges you faced?
All right. Well, my transition started like I think many people's started during the pandemic in 2020. Many schools were forced to make the decision between going online and closing during that time. And many academies closed, but ours decided to go online. So initially, it was a complete shock. I had never done anything like this before. Nothing. And I remember feeling so reluctant. It was completely not what I was used to, and everything that I knew and I had learned and I had refined over however many years it was since I actually got my certification, it's all been face-to-face. Discipline, games, communicative activities, everything was tailored for face-to-face teaching. And suddenly we didn't even have any like transition time. We were straight on online. So that was a massive shock. And I would say probably within the first 2 weeks is when I just thought, oh, I hate this. I hate this so much. There was, but luckily our students were also in the same boat as us. And we all had this new experience of like, oh God, what are we doing? But once we got used to it, and I think it probably took about a month or so of us actually getting into that new routine, I started to accept online teaching, and now I'm a full-time online teacher. So Yay.
And we're obviously going to talk a bit more about that, but I have to say, like you, that initial transition period was a bit difficult, because for me, I had done some online teaching on Skype, but I hadn't used Zoom before. So it was kind of getting to grips with using Zoom for me. And look, with a little bit of research and a little bit of faffing around, it wasn't too bad. But that it was a bit of a like, because we had to deal with the whole pandemic idea first of all.
Exactly.
And
there was a lot going on.
Into the deep end. There was a lot going on. It wasn't just teaching, right? And we were away from our friends and family and things like that. So there was a lot going on. Okay, then, LAINA. So let's move on to the next question. Could you describe the benefits you've experienced in teaching English online compared to face-to-face? So we've talked a bit about how difficult it was initially, but were there any benefits?
Well, I would say the biggest benefit, especially at that time during the pandemic, is obviously the element of safety. We didn't have to go outside. We didn't have to be in a classroom of 12 plus students. We weren't around our colleagues. So we were safe at home, still getting paid, still in employment. So that was a massive benefit at the time. And since the restrictions have kind of eased off a little bit and schools are going back to face-to-face teaching, but ours has decided to do online as well as face-to-face. The biggest benefit for me is I don't live in Spain anymore. I've moved back to the UK, and I've moved from Cambridge, my hometown, and I've moved in with my partner up in Newcastle. So I've been able to progress in life without having my job be affected by those changes. So I would say having the freedom of being online, I can just take my laptop wherever I want to go, as long as I've got a good Wi-Fi connection. I can go anywhere.
That's a thing.
And that's a big thing. We'll probably talk about that a little bit later.
Absolutely. But I mean, look, it's so convenient, isn't it? The whole, teaching online. It really is. Okay, then. Right. So what are some specific advantages of teaching online? So specific advantages of teaching English online to students who attend the same language academy in Spain while you work from home in England. So you mentioned that you're in Newcastle. What are some specific advantages involved in all of that?
Well, I would say for our students, to start off with, the biggest advantage of having those students are that we've had a lot of them since the pandemic. Yeah. So they've been able to see our transition from pre-pandemic fully face-to-face to post-pandemic life, which is a mix of online and face-to-face. And I feel like that they're able to see the amount of effort we have put in to adapt to the situation, and all of those things that we have learned, or we had to learn during the pandemic and getting online. I feel like they're able to appreciate all of the work that we've put in, and they can see that what we've done, and it is a massive amount of effort. I remember my first online classes being absolutely horrible. But now that you've honed in on like PowerPoints, for example, or online resources, which we'll talk a little bit more about later, they're able to see that difference. And it's nice. However, that being said, I have had students that I've never taught face-to-face, and the biggest advantage I would say is I'm able to show them a different way of learning. Using technology, using applications, all of these things that we can do. We can collaborate outside of class, because as you know, I can't take in their books and mark them. I can't take in writings and leave like little smiley faces and highlight things and then give them back. I can't do any of that. It all has to be electronic. So, and especially since our school is doing mainly computer-based exams, I'm able to help them use their computer skills. And even something as small as finding an apostrophe, they have to do that online, and that is a big thing, that the mistakes that they make. So specifically I would say that those are the kind of skills that we can help them with, and I feel like they have been able to really do them very well.
Yeah, it's nice that obviously we worked for the same language academy. Our students attended the same language academy as well. So it's not like you're kind of running between academies and teaching different people online. You're not like a freelance online teacher. So you can really focus on our students and what they need to do and things like that, right? Exactly. It just makes it simpler, to be honest. Yeah. Okay. Right, LAINA, let's move on to the next question then. And this is a difficult one, actually. How do you maintain a strong connection and sense of community with your students despite the physical distance? You touched on that a little bit, about obviously not being able to take in books and things like that, and not have that kind of communication with them. So how do you maintain a strong connection and sense of community?
Well, like with face-to-face teaching, it's so important to build that rapport. And I can understand how people think it's so difficult, because there is such a massive space between you and your students. Right. But in reality, you've never been closer. You're in your student's house with them. You're in their bedroom, you're in their living room or kitchen or wherever they are. You've never been closer to your students. So
nor their parents, because remember, sometimes they sit in the classes as well.
Yeah, so really you couldn't get any closer. And I've had students that they'd have a hard day at school, and they come and they'd like, and they show me pieces of work, or they did like a really good piece in art, and they just show that to me because it's right there in their bedroom with them. So we're able to start conversations about those kind of things. Or the biggest one is like pets, when you're learning animals and you go through all of the animals, and they has anybody got a pet? And instead of just telling me I have a dog, they go off and they go get the dog.
It's show and tell every day. Exactly.
And it's lovely to see, because the shyest of students can just come out of their shell when they're holding up the little turtle and being like, it's my turtle, and tell us about that for 30 seconds. So it's easier, not easier, but it's a different way of building rapport. And because you're there with them, and they can easily pick up things and tell you about it. Or if you play these like treasure hunt games, there's always a story behind some weird wacky objects that they have, and then that can open everybody up to a discussion. So yeah, it's possible. It definitely is possible to build that connection with you and your students, despite the physical distance. You're not that far away.
That's right. I mean, the next question kind of touches on this as well, because it is, have you noticed any changes in student engagement and participation since transitioning to online teaching? I mean, you just mentioned that, for example, they run and get things for you.
Yeah.
You know, that's also participation and engagement right there. So if so, how have you adapted to address these changes?
I think for me, I think maybe it's a different type of engagement, online versus face-to-face. And I think you'll always have classes where students are more engaged than others and students are less engaged. And there are some students that just aren't suited for face-to-face, for online teaching. It's a minority, but there are some cases where, because we're on the computer, you have the whole internet available to you here and there if you don't have any parental blocking or anything. So I had a student who was on YouTube during my classes, and they think you don't know, but you can tell the face, the behavior, the face is completely different when you're not paying attention to me and your classmates, but doing something else. And the way of addressing that is, luckily we have such a good communication between us and our director, and the director and the parents. So because there's that open communication, if I've told him or her to, you know, stop what they're doing and they don't listen to me because I'm not there with them, why do they need to listen? I can message the director, like, quick WhatsApp message. Then she'll call the parents will come in, have a bit of a go, and then suddenly the student's back in the zone. So luckily we do have that good connection between all three of us, teacher, parent, and director, as the middleman between us. So, you know, again, that's the minority I felt. And I think, like, in the beginning, I think it was hard for all of us to get used to learning these new things together. Absolutely. And we've, all of us, the students, the teachers, our colleagues, we've all had the same challenges. We've all had the same level of excitement of trying something new. And those new things, it is new, isn't it? It's completely new. And that is what engages them, I think. Playing a new online game or looking at like a new app on Zoom or something, that's something new that engages everybody. So luckily we have these tools and resources that we can use and exploit with our students.
Yeah, and I keep telling my students, especially my older students, take responsibility for your own learning. You don't need me to tell you when you're in your virtual class to pay attention. Try not to do your maths homework whilst I'm giving you instructions for the next, you know, communicative activity. You know, there's certain things that I can do, but I can't reach into the screen and say, pay attention, stop doing that maths homework. I can see you doing it off to the side.
At the end of the day, they're the ones that are disadvantaging themselves, and there has to be a point where they realize that and just grow up a little bit and, you know, take responsibility, as you said.
Yeah, absolutely. That's important too, right? It's part of your autonomous learning, right? Okay, so LAINA, how do you manage to provide individual attention and personalized feedback to each student in an online setting?
I think it's very daunting in the beginning, because when you look at Zoom or whatever platform you use, you've got all of these little faces and then there's you that's in there somewhere, and it feels like you have more students than you do face to face, even though it's probably the same amount. Because it looks different, it feels like there's more, and you think, oh my gosh, how can I engage all of these students? How can I provide them with correction or feedback or anything like that? And it feels like it's very difficult, but luckily, like I was saying before about the resources that we have, especially on Zoom, which is the main platform that we use, we've got things like the chat box. They can write to me whatever they want to write, and they do.
And they do, they do. Our chat boxes are quite active.
And especially now that they can send gifts and things. So chat boxes, breakout rooms, you know, if you want to split them off and get these people doing an activity while you talk and give feedback to this group of students. There's that. Reactions, you know, they can give themselves feedback, or good job with the thumbs up reaction, or heart, or whatever it is. Initially, individual feedback online, those are the things that are available for us. After the class, and when it comes to, because I mentioned about writings and things, I tend to, obviously they have to do all of their writings on like a Google document or a Word document, and they'll email them to me, and it's so easy for you to just give just written feedback, always written feedback. But I feel like to make it a bit more personal, I like to do oral feedback as well. So voice notes, exactly. Screen recordings, highlighting. It's like you're going through it with them without them being there. And then for independent study, they can listen to that, practice their listening skills, take on board those comments, because right at the end, that's when you give the marks. So I have to watch the whole video to get those marks. And I find that really helpful. And my students have actually come back and told me how much they love hearing me in these videos. So yeah, screen recordings, voice notes, Google Docs, emails, everything. The whole
lot, the whole
communication, exactly. Communication is always there. And they, some of them don't take advantage, but a lot of them do, and that's the thing.
Yeah, I also like receiving like messages from them. Like when I send them a voice note, for example, they would respond with a voice note sometimes. Yeah, that's quite cool that, you know, they've taken the time out to actually respond to my feedback with a voice note. You know, LAINA, I hate texting. I hate typing and doing all of that. So I don't really enjoy giving written feedback. I'd much rather record a video or send a voice note or something like that. So thank God for technology.
Exactly.
It has been my lifesaver.
I'm there.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and it's so much fun as well. You can just kind of be yourself and show your personality, you know. So it's really, really enjoyable. Imagine, assessment is enjoyable, giving feedback is enjoyable.
Who would have thought?
Who would have thought that? What a novel concept. Okay, LAINA, this one you're gonna love, this next question. Have you encountered any technical difficulties or limitations while teaching English online? How do you handle such situations?
Big one. Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi just dropping out, leaving me in a panic, actual panic, because I think, why have I been kicked out of the first couple of times it has happened?
Oh my God.
It's mainly happened when I was in Spain and I had a dodgy internet connection anyway. And then when I upgraded to Fibra, it ended up getting even worse because something went wrong there, and I was being kicked out of my class for no reason. And I thought, what? And then suddenly the little symbol at the bottom of the laptop told me I had no connection, and run to the academy with my laptop and everything just to continue like 5 minutes of my face-to-face classes. So that kind of thing I'd have to do, or just use data on my phone and hotspot it to my laptop, and thankfully now that I have a better Wi-Fi connection that's a lot more reliable, I've not had to do any of those. So my Wi-Fi has stayed on, touch wood, and will stay on for as long as I need it online. But then other issues like your microphone's not working, your camera's glitching, and all of those things. We had last term or the first term last year, with my camera just going completely wacky. But
that was because of the Zoom update that we all had done, right?
Exactly.
And everybody's camera was glitching until Zoom sorted itself out.
But mine didn't sort out. Mine was the problem. Mine was the memory issue on my laptop. So all of these Zoom updates was just killing my laptop memory. And after I upgraded and I cleaned everything, it was then fine. But I mean, luckily our students find that kind of thing funny. So if your camera's glitching, your mouth is all like, you know, they love that kind of thing. Not so much me, but they enjoy it. So it's not such a big issue, you know. A lot of the things that go wrong, technical difficulties, it happens, and you've just got to roll with the punches, I guess.
Yeah, one of the drawbacks of being online, unfortunately,
Exactly.
something at some point is going to go wrong. You just
Yeah.
need to have a plan B or a technician on speed dial.
Exactly. But then these kind of things happen when you're face to face as well. Like, how many times has your projector stopped working, or you can't connect your laptop because you want to project a video and you know the sound doesn't work. All of those things happen face to face as well. It's just when everything that you do is online, and if you're you know your laptop stops responding or something, you're completely cut off from your students. Whereas
That's
face to
right.
face, if your projector stops working, you know, you do something else, you move around it, but online you're stuck.
Yeah. And the problems tend to seem bigger when you're online for some strange reason. You know, like you start kind of panicking rather quickly, like, oh my God, this isn't working. What do I do? Especially when you don't consider yourself to be very tech savvy. You're just like, oh, is this going to be a bigger problem than I can, you know, it's just the whole thing, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Okay. Right. Let's move on. Let's move on. Do you find it easier, LAINA, or more challenging to incorporate multimedia resources and technology into your online lessons compared to face-to-face teaching?
I wouldn't say it's easier, but I do find myself doing it more often. I think because I've got the internet there and then. If I think, I'll just share this quick YouTube video, send the link, they'll watch it, and then we'll discuss it and we'll do all of those activities that I prepared. But compared to face to face, I don't think I was using as many resources, multimedia resources, as I probably could have done. But definitely online, I'm doing the most. So
well, you
I'm
kind of
sending,
have to, to kind of keep your students interested. You've got the World Wide Web at your fingertips. Why wouldn't you use all the fantastic multimedia resources? Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, and it's so easy to just share a link in the chat. Everybody clicks on it. Just make sure everybody's on it instead of on something else. And you're good to go. Like when you would do, for example, a reading activity and you'd distribute your readings and it's one between two and all of that. Just send them a link to a Padlet where you've put up the reading already. They can then, read it by themselves, go off into the breakout rooms, discuss it, maybe write a little comment on the actual post itself, because she can do that kind of thing. And then that sparks a discussion, come back, everybody talks. Yeah, there's so many things you can do.
And I mean, for example,
I'm doing it more.
I love the fact that we can do more like back channel discussions as well. So, you would have like your normal, okay, speak to your partner, or you'll kind of maybe have a fishbowl discussion when two students are kind of speaking to each other. But the other students who aren't participating in that discussion, they can kind of participate by putting their comments into the chat whilst this other discussion is going on and things like that. You wouldn't really be able to do a lot of that in a face-to-face setting, but because you're online, you can really utilize things like that, So I don't know, the engagement for me basically improved being online, to be honest, in a weird way.
Okay, I would say the only challenging thing is finding those resources, and if you can't find it, then taking the time and making them yourself. That's probably the biggest challenge, is because you want to use them, and if they're not on the internet, you're like, fine, I will make them.
But once they're done, they're done. You've got them for life, basically. You just need to improve upon them, modify them a bit or whatever, but you can use those throughout the years, really. So I mean, look, it's all worth it in the end, I think. Okay, so how do you assess your students' progress and understanding in an online environment? I mean, we talked a bit about feedback, but assessment is a whole beast, isn't it? Are there any assessment methods or tools that you find particularly effective?
So what I mainly do, and I do this all the time, online quizzes. So using things like BlueKit or GymKit, Bamboozle, all of those things.
Wait, can I just interrupt? Viewers, LAINA is the BlueKit queen. Let me just say that. And if you don't know what that is, don't worry. I'll put that in the description box. But LAINA is the person to go to when you want to do anything regarding BlueKit.
Yeah,
Okay,
I've made many a Blue Kit quiz, but that's the thing, because Blue Kit has this function where you can make it into a game. It's a competitive element. It can be a 5-minute warmer, it can be a 5-minute cooler, it can be whatever you want it to be. And then at the end, if you view your results, you can see the class percentage, how well did everybody do, and also individual percentages. So I often use that as my assessment. Like, say I want my students to practice specific past participles that we've covered. I'll do a past participle Blue Kit, and then at the end it'll be, for example, out of 35, how many did you get correct out of those 35? Take those marks, put it on the mark sheet, assessment done. So little things like that, the online quizzes and things, if they provide you with the data, it's so easy to do. Other types of assessment would be like student made presentations or projects and things where they're practicing the speakings or specific grammar points or vocabulary points. We replicate the speaking exam for B1, B2, C1 using voice notes, voice recordings, especially the part where you have to describe or compare the photos, getting them to use voice recordings, and then peer assessment, listening out for those kind of things. I do a lot of that. And then obviously marking writings, as I mentioned previously, using the screen recordings, etc. So a lot of assessment.
We've got tools like Speak and Improve, Write and Improve from
Exactly.
Cambridge, etc. And we also have things like, the Google Grade books and things like that. So there's a wealth of resources out there that can really help you with your formative and your continuous assessment. You just have to find what works for you. And as LAINA said, a lot of the online games that we're using and whatnot, assessment is embedded into those things that you can easily utilize. So the tools are there. You just have to take the time out to kind of see what's out there and what will work for you and your students, basically. Okay, then, LAINA. Right, let's kind of shift our focus a little bit. So in terms of work-life balance, how has online teaching impacted your daily routine and overall well-being? So this is about you.
This is a big thing, a big issue, I would say. Work-life balance is so hard to maintain a good work-life balance when your work is in your house and you're working from home. And I really noticed it. I mean, Aisha, we're workaholics. We'll stay in the school until God knows what time at night. And I feel the same with when we were started online teaching. And I noticed myself getting up in the morning, making breakfast, laptop goes on, work all the way until the classes, past the classes. I'll have dinner at my laptop. But this is when I was living by myself. Now I'm fortunate enough to have my partner who he'll make dinner, and he's kind of keeping me, making me aware that I have to get all of these things done in, let's say, 10 minutes, get all the admin stuff done, close it down. Now it's time to finish and go and eat dinner with my partner so that we can have that life, and then the next morning it starts again. So having somebody there to help you keep the balance, I think, is important. And if you don't have anybody there, then just making yourself conscious that you are spending probably more than you should at work. And it is also important to go out and hang out with your friends and just take a moment away from your laptop and read, or whatever you want to do, and not be caught up in this, well, I'm at home, my laptop's there, I might as well crack on with some work. And also keep in mind about having a designated workspace. At the moment I don't have one because of the just how small my house is, but when I was back in Spain I did have a workspace, and I was able to, once I realized I was working too much, I was able to just close the door and block that off and have a weekend, and not go into that study room and start preparing for Monday, Tuesday, whenever. I could shut the door, have my life, and then come probably Monday morning, open the door again and get back to it. So I do think it's important to have that workspace and keep the balance. And it's hard. It really is hard when it's there and you want to do all of these things, and you find yourself working just too much, and considering that you a lot of that effort isn't paid effort. That's because all of the stuff that you're doing in your own time.
That's
Then
right.
you know, you have to be aware of like how much you're putting out to how much you're getting back, and realize you do have a life. It's not just work. You have a life and you need to live it too. It's hard, but it's got to be done.
That balance definitely makes you a better teacher,
Definitely.
you know, overall. So it's important that you take time out for yourself and all of that. Okay, I just wanted to kind of put that into like the middle of the interview, but I'll go back to a question I had skipped over, because obviously if you've got that lovely work-life balance, you're more kind of creative, you kind of think better, your brain is just working better, to be honest. So the question is, can you share any strategies or techniques you've developed to create an engaging and interactive online learning experience for your students?
I would say for me, I use a lot of PowerPoint, purely because it's so easy for me to use. And what I've been doing recently is I'm on TikTok quite a bit, and I've found a lot of PowerPoint, how to make your PowerPoints better TikToks.
Right.
So I'll just be watching them and I'll think, oh, that's cool. I never knew how to do something like that, or change the transition, little things that most people wouldn't know. But just because I'm scrolling through TikTok, because I have free time and I see this thing, I thought, oh, maybe I'll apply it. So those kind of things, I'm trying to make my PowerPoints better, easier to look at, not as boring and dreary.
Right. Okay.
Photos, colors, transitions, all of those things I'm trying to develop, purely because when my students look at something, I want them to not just look at it and take the information, but if they are going to, like, for example, take a screenshot of a particular activity that we've done together, I want them to be able to remember it and not just have it lost in their phone or their computer or whatever.
Right.
Like online tools as well. That's another technique that I've been using a lot of. Word searches and using the Zoom tools to use the pen, for example, to highlight the words that they find, projecting everything and having students annotate it, which is very funny because they're all trying to use their pens using their mouse and
that's always a fun thing to do, isn't it, really?
Color inside the lines and you can't. And just I think exploiting what tools we have on the platform that we use. And you know, we've gone on about it a lot, but just changing up interaction patterns, using the breakout rooms, mix them up a little bit, go with two pairs to threes to different people and everybody. I think that creates a better mentality among everybody, because they know each other, they work with each other, and it's only for a couple of minutes, and then you move on to the next person exactly as you would face to face. You can do it online.
Yeah, and you don't always want that teacher-student engagement. You want
I
them to
don't
a lot more, you know, amongst each other. You know, you want a break from your students, even in the class.
Exactly.
And they want a break from you.
They sure do. They sure do.
So, you know, and look, we all know that there's some students who don't really say an awful lot to you when you do have those teacher-student engagements. So it's better when they're in their little groups or pairs or whatever. So if you can send them off to kind of work together, then it's going to benefit all of us, really. Absolutely. Okay, then, LAINA, so let's move on to the next question. Right, it's all about professional development. Have you found any opportunities for professional development or collaboration within the online teaching community? How do you stay updated with the latest teaching methodologies and resources? Well, the good thing is we're collaborating right now.
It's so easy to collaborate when you have colleagues that want to.
So true. And look, this is something that should be just like normal, isn't it? I mean, come on now. Everybody should be collaborating, no matter what you're teaching. Anyway,
I feel like a lot of people get into that mentality of like, I made it, I've got to keep it close to my chest, when it's not about you. At the end of the day, it's about your students. And if you can help not just your students, but the other students in the school that you work for, then why not? No, don't keep everything close to your chest. Share these materials or new things that you found, a new website or anything like that. share it.
But isn't
Wow.
that what teaching is all about, though? I mean,
Exactly.
come on now. You
Yeah.
share ideas, right? You know,
Yeah.
you basically tell people what works for you and what doesn't.
Mhm.
That's the dynamic, isn't it? Like, I
Yeah.
don't understand. You
Yeah.
know, teaching, look, it can be a bit isolating sometimes when you're kind of planning your lessons, doing your assessment, you're all on your own. So
Mm.
any excuse to basically get together with another teacher, whether you're griping about work or your students, or you're sharing ideas, or you're just like excited about something new that you're trying,
Mhm.
get together, work
Yeah.
together, you know,
Mhm.
exchange things. It makes your job so much more pleasant.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Right, LAINA. Okay. Oh, but let me just go back to the question, because I mentioned that we're doing this collaboration within the online teaching community. You know, on my YouTube channel, you're doing this interview with me. We also attend lots of, you know, teaching conferences and
Yeah.
webinars and things like that for our
Mm.
professional development. So let's go back to the latter question. How do you stay updated with the latest teaching methodologies and resources? So, you know, what else do you do?
Yeah. So, well, I mostly signed up for are they called subscriptions? I'm not sure, but they send me an email to tell me that
Yeah.
there's a new webinar. And, you know, if it's something that I'm interested in, of course, I'll watch it. If it's something that I'm not so interested in, but still kind of should be listening to, then it's background noise and I can come and go as I please. And luckily, a lot of these webinars are recorded, so you can do those kind of things. You don't have to watch it live. But the good thing is that there are a lot of online webinars and conferences. So we attend the annual ASEA conference, and in the beginning that wasn't. It was just a face-to-face event, and then luckily, because of the pandemic, they were able to then move that and find a way to make it an online event. And I'm very grateful for that, because I love going to ASEA and I love hearing these different talks, different people's perspectives. And if there's anything new, then great. If there's not, then it's just nice to be there. And because it's online, and, you know, I'm in the UK at the moment, I can't just up and go to Spain and attend this conference for a day. I could, but I don't have the money. It's just nice. It's online and I can do it in the comfort of my own home. And it feels like I'm there. So that's a major benefit. And I really thank ASEA for doing that for all of us online teachers who aren't in Spain. We were able to attend still. And just in general, keeping updated, you know, like with WhatsApp messages between us, our colleagues, and our director. If she'll get something in, she'll pass it on to us. Emails, just as I would face to face. I don't think anything has really changed because I'm online, just in how face to face events have changed. I think they've now moved online, which is nice.
Yeah, I mean, I think more and more people, like even after the I'll say after the pandemic, but you know what I mean? Some people would argue that it's still going on.
Well,
many people, like, for example, I attended the Trinity, I think it was the 8th annual teaching conference, and it was entirely online. So although we can still have these conferences face to face, many organizations are opting to kind of keep them online because they know that they can reach a lot of people, you know. So not everybody can go to Seville, for example, for a conference, but if you put it online, then I can attend from Brazil, I can attend from India, you know. So it's just, look,
and I mean, how many people have you
global.
seen in the comments of those? And they are from everywhere. And it's great. And it does make you feel like you are part of a global community, which is lovely.
Absolutely. You know, and the standard hasn't dropped in any way. Some would argue that things have improved as a result of keeping these things online. So hopefully this will be the future, you know. So more and more conferences will maybe have both, have like a hybrid conference, so that you can attend, you know, face to face, if that's, you know, if that's what you can do. But, you know, we're online as well. So that's really, you know, just great for the teaching community in general, to be honest. Okay, then, LAINA. Right. So considering your experience in both face-to-face and online teaching, do you think there are certain aspects that are better suited for one mode of instruction over the other?
I think that's a difficult question for me, because I'm trying to replicate my face-to-face experience online. And I'm trying to adapt everything I used to do and all of like the games or activities that I would do. I'm trying to find an online equivalent so I can have the same experience. But there are some things that, you know, I'd like to do in my classes that I can't, because it involves students running around and discovering things like post-it notes hidden behind cabinets or something with like a definition. You got to find that word that it matches up to on the other side of the classroom. Those kind of things I've not yet found a way to adapt, but I'm sure
what do they call those things?
I can't remember.
There's something rooms where you have to kind of go into a room,
like escape room.
Digital escape rooms are the equivalent of that.
Yeah. So if I find out a way of making my own digital escape room with all of my things,
definitely can. I think in the Funtivity app you can actually make your own breakout rooms. There's another website I use, and you can actually create your own breakout rooms. The name is on the tip of my tongue. I just can't recall it at the moment, but I'll let you know. But you can create your own not breakout rooms, escape rooms, you know, and you can, look, they don't always have to be overly complicated, because half of those escape rooms are just stuck in a room like, how do I get out of this? You know, but you can actually create your own to suit the level you're teaching.
So that kind of thing, now that I know that I can, I will. But I think a lot of it is just finding the time and researching how to adapt it to online. So some of those things probably work better face to face, like a quick 5-minute activity, scribble something on a post-it note, whack it on the wall. All right, go and match that with the definition that I've scribbled over there, like a very quick activity. I've obviously got to take more time to do it online. But I do think a lot of the things that we do face to face, we can adapt it to online. And I really don't think that my students are disadvantaged in any way because they have an online teacher or they have online classes. And I know in the beginning many parents were reluctant to keep their children online because whatever reason they just thought face-to-face is the better way of doing it, and that made me feel very insecure, because I thought, well,
traditional way.
Exactly. And I thought, well, are my classes not good enough? Like, why are these parents saying they want to go back to face-to-face, and is it something I'm doing? But then after, you know, observation, feedback, positive feedback from management and my peers and everything, I got my confidence back, and I realized it's not a me problem, it's the parents' way of thinking. And really, I don't think our students, they care either way. I think they enjoy online and they enjoy face-to-face for different reasons. And that's great. So I don't feel like my students are in any way disadvantaged because I'm an online teacher. And I think that's because I have made the effort to try to make it such an experience where they don't feel disadvantaged, or like, oh, face-to-face teaching is better. Well, why is that? Why is it better? Because you can see people in real life and talk with them. That's probably the main comment that they make. That they can see their partners.
It's the status quo. Face-to-face teaching has been around for millennia. I mean, as human beings, that's the only kind of teaching we've ever known, right? And the age of technology is relatively new, you know, in the scheme of things. So people have to wrap their brains around this whole face-to-face teaching, because it's now not just a sporadic thing or a thing that happens once in a blue moon. And so it's going to take a little while for parents, especially who are no longer in education, to kind of keep up with these changes. So I can understand the pushback, to be honest, but thankfully a lot of them, as I said earlier, were able to sit in our classes with their students, and they were able to see what we do. You know, they were able to kind of participate in many ways, basically to engage as well, you know, whether silently or vocally, it doesn't really matter. But
when they see their own son or daughter producing all of this English and talking to us, understanding what we're saying, then they're like,
Yeah, yeah. And
Wow.
you're not just stuck in your chair either. We do
exactly.
have kinesthetic things going on. You can get up and move if that's what we need to do as well. It's just as engaging and it's just as fun, just as educational. But sometimes you need to see it to understand it and to be it.
Right.
So
Yeah.
thank God we were able to do all of that. And I think everybody's quite happy with the quality of teaching we produce, right? Okay, then, LAINA, the final question. Right. Based on your experiences, what advice would you give to teachers who are transitioning from face-to-face to online teaching?
I would say keep the enthusiasm that you have with your face-to-face teaching, keep that energy in your online classes, and remember that the focus is not on you. I find myself sometimes monologuing and then I'm like, hang on a minute, why is my teacher talking time increasing when it wouldn't if I were face to face? And I think it's because it's so easy for our students to not really say anything and take like a more passive role. They can easily silence their microphones and just kind of sit back and let the class happen. And you've got to be conscious to not let that happen. And encourage participation, calling on people, mixing it up a little bit. So remembering that you are not the center of attention and keeping your enthusiasm, and just remembering that everything that you want to do or you did face to face, you can do it online. It's just a case of putting that effort in and finding ways to adapt specific activities or things that you've created and putting them in a more digital way. And all the techniques that you've learned face to face in terms of discipline, other things, they all apply. If a student's misbehaving, it's the same kind of discipline that you would give your student if they were face to face. Send them out of the class, put them in their own breakout room, something, anything like that.
The waiting room is always there.
The waiting room is there. Those things, they all apply. So it's not such a stark difference, and it may feel like it's a huge difference from going face to face online, but really once you get used to it, it's not that different. The only difference is it's digital, and you've got to put that effort in to make it and go as streamlined as you want. And I do find that the amount of effort you put in really shows in the results that you get. So if you're kind of lazy about your classes, you're not going to get very good results. Your students aren't going to be engaged. So you put the effort in and it comes back to you.
Yeah, in many ways, being online perhaps makes you a better teacher because, if you're very kind of lackadaisical about your teaching, it really shows when you're online. It really shows when you're online. Do you see what I mean? So you have to do a lot more preparation, perhaps, so it kind of hones your skills.
But like we said before, a lot of that preparation that you did saves, and you can use it again and again and again.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
It's not wasted time, and it's not wasted at all.
Okay, LAINA, as I said, that was the last question. Yay. Okay, so that's it for OOT. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Aisha's English Oasis for more content like this. Also, don't forget to visit my channel's community tab. And finally, I'd like to thank my guest, LAINA.
Thank you
for taking the time out today to do this interview. I really, really appreciate it, LAINA. So everybody, until next time, bye.